everyone, welcome to another video on the Crush Crowdfunding YouTube channel. I'm super glad that you're here with me today, and I'm super psyched to talk about our topic today because the topic is, where do I find my crowdfunding audience? Everybody that I talk to actually has this one main question, even if they don't talk to me, or even if they don't, individually pick up the phone and talk to me. They ask me through chats, they ask me through emails, they ask me through my contact form on the website, like, where do I find my crowdfunding audience? Where do I get an audience? Where do I build an audience? And so this is actually the number one most asked question of all time when it comes to crowdfunding. So today we're going to talk about where to find your crowdfunding audience. And basically what I'm going to outline today is there are 3 different kind of ways out of multiple millions of ways that you can really effectively find your audience for crowdfunding. I'm going to talk about 3 different ways. 1 is through Facebook groups, 2 is through advertising, and 3 is through podcasts. Those are the 3 main ways that I'm going to talk about today that can hopefully spark your idea and spark some inspiration for other different ways, other more creative ways too, to find people for your crowdfunding campaign and find your audience for your crowdfunding campaign and collect those emails and make those people, your fan base, give you their contact information so that you can have them in your email list. Because as we've talked about before, email is honestly the biggest driving factor to campaign success, the biggest revenue driver for a campaign, beyond advertising, beyond social media, beyond any other channel that you might be leveraging or might be using. So having a fan base, having the right fan base will really, really drive your campaign to success, drive your campaign to the level that you want it to be and where you want it to go. So let's talk about the first place you can find those crowdfunding audiences. The first place you can go is actually Facebook groups. And wow, if you haven't heard me talk about Facebook groups before, be ready. I love Facebook groups. I actually have a Facebook group too. If you're not in it yet, you can actually find Crush Crowdfunding, the Crush Crowdfunding Facebook group on Facebook, and join me because I'm there every single day talking about tips and tidbits. I even have live video that I do every single month for the group just to talk about different questions people have and just answer anything at all. Any other questions at all that you guys have. But anyways, if you haven't heard me talk about Facebook groups yet, be ready. I love Facebook groups. Facebook groups are crazy insane. So people think that paid advertising on Facebook is honestly the way to go when it comes to finding an audience, when it comes to getting people who have this passion and love for some idea. People think that paid advertising is the way to go. However, I'm here to tell you that actually one of the most effective ways to build your group online is through Facebook groups. And you might be wondering wait, that doesn't make any sense. Why Facebook groups? It's because people actually go to Facebook groups and self-segregate themselves into topics and into niches that are already important to themselves. So think about this. There's over, I think, 1 billion Facebook groups on Facebook right now. Over 1 billion Facebook groups. That's so many groups on Facebook. And there's so many people with so many interests on there already telling you exactly what they're looking for, exactly what they're interested in, exactly what kind of problems they have. For example, people who want to know about crowdfunding find, my group. They find a group that talks about crowdfunding because they want to learn how to actually be a crowdfunder, how to actually launch a project and get an idea fully funded. So they find a group just like the one that I run so that they can learn all these things and actually be successful. Other people who love playing the kazoo actually congregate together into a kazoo type Facebook group just to talk about kazoos, talk about their problems that they have with kazoos, talk about their passions when it comes to kazoos. There's literally a group for every love and interest and hobby and obsession and passion that people have. So with this said, your audience for sure is already in a Facebook group somewhere out there. For example, right? If you're trying to launch an outdoor like travel backpack, right? An all-in-one travel backpack. You're probably going to be looking at Facebook groups that have people who are, digital nomads or backpackers or world travelers or people who are location independent, right? You're going to be looking at Facebook groups with these niches in mind and going into them, and you'll find hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of people already who have told you that, one, they love to travel, and two, they love talking about travel, and three, they want to learn more about travel, right? Like those are the key types of factors that you want to be, identifying for when it comes to your audience and your fan base, when you're building up your own audience for your crowdfunding campaign, for your crowdfunding launch. So again, if you have this travel related product, be sure to go into these groups. Be sure to start making those relationships, making those connections, starting those conversations with people so that they know who you are, what you're doing, what you're about, and where you're going with this product, where you're going with what you want to make, what you want to create. Because ultimately, these are going to be the people who's going to pre-order your product. Ultimately, these are the people who are going to be buying your product once it gets past the crowdfunding stage into the mass market. They're going to be buying your product on Amazon after crowdfunding. They're going to be buying your product in retail stores and REI, at any camping store, hiking store, right? Any of these people in these Facebook groups, they're the core audience. They're the people that you need to be talking to. So that's why I think Facebook groups is one of the core, most fundamental things, fundamental outlets actually, for you to actually talk to people and find people. And if you can't wrap your head around Facebook groups just yet, just think about forums, okay? Back then on the internet, there used to be these forums and these boards where people who were interested in like digital photography or interested in weaving or anything else, they used to congregate on these forums on the internet, just dedicated towards talking and discussion about that one particular topic. But now it's just moved onto Facebook, and they've just created a way to make forums within the Facebook platform itself, and they just call it groups. So really, it's just exactly the same thing, just on a different platform, and more powerful just because Facebook reaches multiple billion people around the world, and these groups show up pretty regularly for these people, and these people want to be in a community. They want to be sharing their stories and sharing their content and sharing their love and passion with other like-minded people. So go out there to Facebook groups and find your people, find your audience, because they are there. The second thing I want to talk about is an extension of that, right? Just now I mentioned that ads aren't the best way. The only reason I'm saying that ads aren't the best way is because it takes money, right? It takes money to run advertising. But in the grand scheme of things, sorry, that was actually my dog. In the grand scheme of things, Facebook ads is still a really, really effective way to find an audience for crowdfunding. Why is that? That is because the way that Facebook ads are set up is really powerful. You're able to find all these people, these billions of people in the world, right? And you're able to say, I only want to talk to people who are interested in crowdfunding. I only want people who are interested in crowdfunding and knitting. I only want to talk to people who are interested in crowdfunding, knitting, and a new way of knitting. Right? So basically what Facebook ads allows you to do is be really clear and be really concise who you spread your message to, who you want to be talking to, who your end user is going to be. I like to let people know that the only way that you would most effectively use Facebook and use the advertising platform on Facebook for both Facebook and Instagram is if you know who your end audience is already. You're not just kind of weaving around, dilly-dallying, trying to find who your audience is. If you're doing a knitting product, you're not going to be like, hey, let me just try advertising to people who hate knitting. Or if you're trying to sell a product that helps with knitting, you're not going to probably start off targeting people who are interested in show cats, right? Because when you go to Facebook, it can get really, really, really specific who you want to target and who you want to be talking to, and make sure that your message actually goes to the right people. So if you have the wrong group of people in your head, you're starting off in a totally, completely different realm of the giant billion people Facebook realm already that you're just kind of throwing your money down the drain. You know you're ready to go to Facebook advertising when you can really identify who your product is for, and you can actually say who these people are. For example, if you're trying to launch a new dog collar, like a dog tracker collar thing, you want to be able to identify that, okay, only people who have large dogs are really interested in this. So you just use those breeds as different qualifiers, right? A St. Bernard versus a Chihuahua. People who have Chihuahuas probably won't be interested in this because I don't have the size for them, right? So there's all these different things you can do to make Facebook advertising work for you and work for finding you an audience. However, if you don't have your audience honed down and your audience narrowed down, Facebook ads can be a giant money sink. And so I would recommend, if you're going to go down the path of Facebook advertising, to find your audience and to really hone in on people and get their email address. It's a very effective way if you know who you're going to be talking to, because your message will be pinpointed to very specific groups of the population. If you're giving the wrong group a certain message, it's not going to work and you'll be wasting tons of money. And so again, the first channel we talked about today is Facebook groups. They're kind of like forums, right? The second channel we talked about is Facebook advertising, and only should be done if you have a solid core idea of who your audience is and who they are, or else you're just going to be sinking tons of money. The third outlet that you can actually really find your audience is through podcasts. Podcasts. Yeah, there's a bunch of podcasts popping up nowadays, a bunch. There's like tens or hundreds or thousands popping up every single month. There's so many podcasts popping up because not everyone has time to read, right? Not everyone has time to read a blog or watch a YouTube video like you're doing right now. Some people just really want to be listening to something as they're vacuuming, as they're running, as they're on the go. And that's why there's such a huge rise in the demand for podcasts. And with that rise in demand comes niches. Lots of really, really specific niches, right? If you're launching a product that has to do with being a chef or making your time easier in the kitchen or making sure that your 1 hour meal actually becomes a 10-minute meal or something like a tool for using in the kitchen, right? Be sure that you're featured on these podcasts that have to do with chef life or kitchen life or cooking life or be at home life or making food for the family or like meal prepping or anything like that, right? There's so many podcasts out there, and all these listeners are, again, they're self-selecting, right? They're self-selecting and only listening to podcasts that they're truly interested in. No one's going to listen to a podcast about cooking if they hate cooking. No one's going to listen to a podcast about overseas travel if they hate traveling. No one's going to listen to a podcast about prepping for doomsday if they don't believe in prepping for doomsday. And so you have the advantage of actually knowing that everyone that you talk to already has an audience, and you're able to put yourself in front of them and in front of their audience. You're going to immediately expose yourself to hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of new people out there that you haven't been, privy to before, that you didn't know before, you haven't been introduced to before. And so that's another really great way to make sure that people know about you, know about your mission, know about your company, know about your product, know about when you're launching, what you're launching, and know about what you're going to do. Being on a podcast, whether it's starting your own podcast in that niche that you want to be in so that you become the authority, you become the expert in that particular niche, or just finding people out there who have this audience already and just leveraging their audience. There's so many things you can do. Just make sure that you're able to talk to them and make sure that you're able to talk about your product and talk about what it is, what it does, and what problem it solves and how it compares to everything else that's on the market, right? No one wants to buy into something that is going to be worse than something that's already out there, right? Maybe you know that when you're looking at a Swiss Army knife, there's 2 different things that make your Swiss Army knife 3 times better than everything else that's out there. Make sure that you're able to articulate what the top ones in the industry can do and how you can offer more value to the backers. So making sure that you're able to say all this and articulate all this will help you really, really engage with your audience, build that trust and build that credibility so that you can bring people into your own audience, capture that giant audience, even a sliver of it, and bring them into your own audience, then you're just building an audience, right? And so today we talked about the 3 different places that you can go to find your audience. You can go to Facebook groups, which is kind of the modern new world form. You can do Facebook advertising because your message will be literally put in front of people who have indicated that interest. Or 3, go out and be on a podcast or start a podcast because people are going to be self-selecting into that interest group already. So what do all these things have in common? What all these have in common is that the person knows what they're interested in and there's a community around that idea. So although we talk about these 3 different channels, there's hundreds of other things you can do to help build your own audience. There's hundreds of other different outlets and channels where you can do this exact same thing. Go out, find where people are self-selecting into the interest group that you are working in and start making relationships. Start talking about your project, start talking about your vision and your idea, because that's how you find people. Thanks for being with me on another video here on the Crush Crowdfunding YouTube channel. Be sure to give a thumbs up if you liked the content of the video, and be sure to hit the subscribe button down below so that you get a notification every time a new video drops. Thanks again for being here. I hope you enjoyed this conversation about the 3 different places that you can find your crowdfunding audience, and you can really get creative and go out there and find your audience and find where they're congregating, find where they're hanging out, and really just bring this audience into your own circle, into your own crew, into your own fan base, and go out there and crush your crowdfunding launch. I'll see you guys in the next video.